we have two different ages. We have a 55-year-old person here, and we have a 65-year-old person here. Now, the information or data for this individual is going to be exactly the same. $1 million in 401k, non-qualified account, whatever. $1 million, okay? We have one individual who's 55 and one individual who's 65. Throw out that we need to use the rule of 55 if all this money's in a 401k. Throw out taxes. We're just looking specifically at the data. We're going to get into a little bit more of a calculated stance here in just a second. We're going to look at 4% withdrawal plus inflation for both of these scenarios. So $40,000 is our expenses. That's where we're going to start, 4%. But we're going to look at 3% inflation on both of these scenarios. So as time goes on, our expenses are going to grow by 3% inflation, meaning we're going to have to take off our 4% plus inflation, okay, to make this last. This is easy. This is future cash flow calculations. We do this all the time. Now, what we're not going to calculate in this scenario is Social Security. We're not going to calculate pensions. We're not going to calculate taxes. This is a very simplistic approach to show you why you need to think differently about the 4% rule. I call this the HUB approach, the HUB. H-U-P. I'm from Kentucky, so my P's and my B's all sound the same. Hear, understand, produce. Okay, Jesus told the parable about the man who scattered seed. And he said the seed that fell on good soil produced 30, 60, and 100 fold. We want to hear, we want to understand, and then we apply this to our retirement income strategy and we produce a good outcome. Okay, hear, understand, produce. So we have a 55-year-old with $1 million. He needs $40,000 a year to live off of. That's $3,333 per month. We've got a 4% rate of return, meaning this money is in some sort of investment vehicle, stock market, CD, money market, annuity, whatever, and it's earning 4%. Okay, and that's what we're going to assume throughout the life of this strategy. We have 3% inflation. So this money here is going to have inflation on it. So in both situations, we have inflation. From 55 to 65, we're taking out $40,000 a year plus inflation. Okay, even though you're only seeing this in 10-year stretches, when I did the math, we're looking at this on a yearly basis. We actually break it down to a monthly basis, but I'm annualizing it for the video. Okay, so we've got $1 million at 55. At 65, we have $841,349. From 65 to 75, we increase our expenses, right, with inflation. So it goes from $3,333 to $4,610. So we have an increase there. We're still earning that rate of return of 4%, but that inflation number is kicking us in the rear end, right? So now we have $841,349 at 65, okay? From 65 to 75, that 841 goes down to 369. So in a 10-year span, 4% with inflation, we're down about $500,000 with a 4% rate of return. And you might be going, Drew, that 4% rate of return, that's a really conservative projection for money that's in the stock market. I agree. The market's averaged 10% since 1950, 8% with inflation. You're not going to get 12% rate of return anywhere over the long term. I'm sorry. 10% is what the market's returned, 8% with inflation. So if we go back to 4, that's half of what the market's average. That's pretty conservative. So that's what we're looking at here. So at 75, we got $369,319. Our expenses have grown to $6,360, right? So that only lasts 5 years now, and we're out of money at 80 years old. That's at 55, 4% with inflation. Okay, this is real world. Just not looking at Social Security, taxes, and some other actual factors that we'll get into. But this is how it works. 80 years old, okay? Out of money. What was that? 10, 20, is that 25 years? 65, 75? Yeah, 25 years. Not even 30 years. Even I can do math on my fingers. Again, I'm from Kentucky. That's how we fingers and toes. After we run out of toes, who knows where we go at that point. All right, now, 65-year-old. Looks exactly the same, except now bump it up 10 years, right? 65 to 75, we take out the same amount of money. We're getting the same rate of return. Inflation's still the same, 3%, but now At 75, we have $841,349. So you see that? 65 and 75. That's a big difference, right? Because what are you doing at 65 years old? You're traveling. You're hanging out with your grandkids. You're going over to Italy. Or maybe you're going to Italy at Epcot. You're doing some stuff at 65 that you're probably not doing at 75. I'm not saying you're not going to be healthy at 75, but at 75, you're probably not doing the same things you're doing at 65. You're not as active. Okay? Now, 75, $841,349. Between 75 and 85, it's the same thing. We go down to $369,319. Okay, now look. 75 to 85. Big difference, right? Because what happens at 85? That's our mortality rate for males and females, somewhere between 80, let's just say 85, right? We're gonna die with some money. Over here at 75, we're like wondering like, are we gonna live long? Are we gonna outlive our money? What about long-term care? What about assisted living? And so now we're out at 90, which makes me feel a lot better. But you can see how the 4% rule can't just be applied blanket coverage and say, hey, this is gonna work because of how inflation works, because of how expenses grow. So you've gotta have a more precise plan when it comes to your retirement income. Okay, let's get into a more detailed strategy using these same numbers, but let's throw in Social Security, let's look at some taxes, and let's look at just a little bit more of a realistic scenario. All right, let's go through a detailed strategy of can I retire with $1 million and why you need to not consider the 4% rule when it comes to planning out your retirement income. I want to show you why you need to have a more specialized strategy, or you might be in danger of running out of retirement income. Remember, the principle that we're using on this video is called HUP. H-U-P. Hear, understand, produce. We want to hear the knowledge, we want to understand it, and we want to go out and produce it, right? Just like Jesus told the parable, the man who threw the seed in good soil, 30, 60, 100-fold. We want to produce 30, 60, 100-fold. Now, let's look at this. We've got a 55-year-old, we have a 65-year-old, they have $1 million. Okay, now I'm not concerned about saying this is the same person and them working. These are two separate people, 55-year-old and a 65-year-old. Now, they're both gonna need 4% out of their portfolio to start. So we're looking at 4% plus inflation. They're both gonna get Social Security at 67. So we're gonna wait till the full retirement age to take Social Security. Now, the reason we're gonna wait till 67 is because at 67, you get 100% of your full retirement benefit. If you claim Social Security early, 62, 63, 64, you get a reduced benefit. So at 62, you get 70% of your full retirement benefit. If you claim at 70, if you're an overachiever, a broccoli eater, you're gonna get 124% of your full retirement benefit. Now, I'm not telling you that claiming at 67 is the right decision. What I'm saying is claiming Social Security is a personalized decision, and for this video, we're gonna look at claiming at 67. We could claim earlier, but we're just gonna look at full retirement age. We're trying to get the data as close to comparable as we possibly can. So we got $1 million. Now, we're 55 years old, we've got $1 million, and we're gonna assume that this $1 million is in our 401k, our current 401k. So we're gonna use the rule of 55 to start taking retirement income. Now, if you've never heard of the rule of 55, I got a lot of videos on this channel about that, but in simplistic form, you can use the rule of 55 to take out retirement income from your current 401k if you're terminated, you leave your job, or you decide to retire in the year that you turn 55. So this person is retiring at 55. They're going to use their current 401k for retirement income, so we're not going to pay the 10% penalty for an early withdrawal under the age of 59 and a half. We still going to pay taxes, but not the 10% penalty. Okay, so rule of 55 over here. Over here we have a 65-year-old. We do not need to use the rule of 55. That $1 million is just in an IRA and it's ready to be used for income. There are taxes on both of these strategies being taken out on the gross side. So the $40,000 is a net figure. So this is a net figure that you're seeing. So the computations have taxes already removed out of them, okay? So they've had to take more for taxes. It's qualified money on both sides. I think I'm getting as close as I possibly can to comparison, okay? Now, 55, we have $1 million. We need $40,000 a year out of our retirement investment. So that's what our retirement income is. So $3,333. We're going to earn a 4% rate of return on our money. Okay, so 4% is the rate of return we're going to earn on that $1 million. So it's in the market, it's earning 4%. Okay, we're going to look at that for the lifetime. Now, you guys know, you and me both know, that the market's just not going to go like this for 4%. It's going to be like this, right? But if you make 4% this year and you make 4% next year, that's an annualized what? 4%. If you make 8% this year and you make 0% next year, that's an annualized 4%. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to calculate as close to 4% as we possibly can. We're also going to look at inflation. We're going to use 3%. Now, 3.27% is the 109-year average for inflation. We're going to use 3%. So we're going to come down just a little bit. So we're going to give inflation a little bit of a check there. We're going to use 3% as a round number. Now, 55 to 67, that's 12 years of income. So we got $1 million, we're taking out $333 a month. At age 67, we have $714,643. You see that? $1 million to 714. Okay, now over here, we're 65. We only got 2 years till we get to full retirement age. So from 65 to 67, that's 2 years. We go from $1 million, we actually go to $1,031,000. We actually grow our money $31,000. Less time to pull out of our investments. This is more time. And the more time you have to pull out money from your investments, the less time you have for growth, right? Because we're pulling that out. Now at 67, we're starting Social Security. So we've got our expenses here and we've got Social Security here. Now what I want you to notice on both of these scenarios, let me show you a difference. 65 years old, we have Social Security of $3,000, okay? 55 years old, Social Security of $2,500. We're assuming that this person continued to work, adding to their work history, increasing their Social Security, okay? This person stopped working at 55. There might have been a lot of zeros in their work history when Social Security is calculating their Social Security benefits. So we're at $2,500. So we stopped working earlier, we had a lesser Social Security check. That's something you got to think about. If you're going to think about retiring early, you got to be thinking, what's my Social Security check going to be if I quit working early and I start putting goose eggs up on the board on my work history? Because you might have a Social Security statement in front of you, but there's some fine print on that Social Security statement that says, if you keep working, this is what your Social Security payment would be. If you retire at 55, it could be 12 years, or it could be 7 years, or it could be 15 years before you collect Social Security. What's that payment actually going to be? You need to think about that if you're wanting to retire early, and you need to think about Social Security. So, Social Security is $2,500. So for the 55-year-old, we need $2,497 from our retirement investments, right? $4,997 is our expenses, $2,500 Social Security, you subtract those two, $2,497, or basically $2,500 per month has to come out. What is that? $30,000 a year? Has to come out of this $714,643. So we go from 714 to 445 over a 10-year period, right? Now we're dropping even faster at 77. At 77, our expenses go to 6,893. Our Social Security does have a COLA increase, right? 3,225. That's a COLA increase of about 2.5% for Social Security. And now we need 3,668. We're out of money at 84 years old. 84. And if we put Social Security at 62, it actually bumps that down to 82 years old. So people might comment like, hey, take Social Security early, that's going to alleviate some of this pain. Not really, not in this scenario. It actually bumps it up to 82 years old. I'll put that on here so you know. 82 Social Security early. So in this case, we might have to put some other things into place. Okay, let's go to 65. $1 million. Social Security is $3,000. So from 65 to 67, we go to $1,031,000. Now, our expenses go from $3,300 basically to $3,500, right? 2-year span. Social Security kicks on. We need $500 out of our portfolio, so $6,000 a year. So you actually grow. Look at that. In 10 years, we go $350,000, or basically $320,000. $1,031,000 to $1,350. I'm running out of toes and fingers when it comes to counting. Now at 77, we've got 1.3. Our expenses have grown about $1,400. Do you see that? 49997, but our Social Security has gone to 3970. That's with the COLA increase. So now we need $1,000 out of our investments, and at 87 we got $1.4 million. So this is a great scenario. The person keeps on growing even though they're taking money out of their investments. Now, obviously they've worked longer, they have a longer work history, so their Social Security is higher. They've had to probably work a lesser paying job because at 65 they have $1 million now, whereas this person at 55 had $1 million. So they saved more. Maybe they sacrificed a lot more earlier and this person did not, so they had to work earlier. I just want you to see the scenario and say, hey, when it comes to me, it has to be a personalized retirement income withdrawal. It can't be something that just says, I'm going to take out 4%, or I'm going to take out 8%, or I'm going to take out 3%. No, it needs to be personalized. Remember, we're talking about taxes, inflation, rates of return, when do we collect Social Security, and we didn't even talk about how are our investments allocated. We didn't talk about any of the risk on our money. So there's a lot that goes into calculating how much you need to pull out of your retirement income. And listen, if you'd like to meet with us to go over a financial EKG for you, all the details are below. But hey, thank you so much for watching. God bless. Bye-bye.